Talk Radio.
That Tim Wise knows it.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
does he ever know it? If you ever hear Tim Wise talk, you would think you're talking, that you're listening to Malcolm X,
Wow. I don't think wow. Wow. You feel like he talks about white supremacy with that much...
Tim Wise is one of the best speakers on the system of white supremacy I've ever heard. And he out-talks a whole bunch of black people with much greater precision. Get his facts straight and all that. All the nuances and everything. But like I said, I've stood right within 2 feet of Tim Wise. I've never said not one word to Tim Wise. Lots of people, black people, crowd around him, get his autograph and whatnot. They want to know, where are you from? You must come from the moon. I mean, right. I've been in the presence of Tim Wise on a number of occasions, who is very articulate. He speaks, he knows how to talk about racism better than millions of black people could ever do it.
Really?
Okay. Oh, if you ever hear Tim Wise talk, you'll know it. But I have been in his presence. I've stood next to him and all like that. I've never even said one word to Tim Wise because I don't have no reason to.
Why don't you have anything to say to him if he's that informed about racism?
Because I go according to the code. The code says I don't pay attention to any white person who's talking against racism. And the reason is the code requires me, if the discussion comes up, there's one criteria when it comes to white people and what they are doing about racism, doing or saying. And that criteria is racism either exists or it doesn't. In other words, you don't get paid for effort.
Context of white supremacy, Gus T. Renegade, Justice, here hopefully to provide constructive information about what racism is and how it works. That was Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Keep those words in mind as we move forward through the program. I do not believe in paying for yardage either. Either the job is done or it's not done. And I have concluded, unfortunately, the system of racism, white supremacy, replacing that system with justice, that job is far from complete. Our guest for today's program, the admitted racist white supremacist known as Tim Wise. Mr. Wise, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You could speak up a little bit. You're a little low.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Outstanding. We got you. Everything is good to go. We want to be as efficient as possible today. I know we have a lot of listeners, and folks are already blowing up the phone lines. So I'm hopping right into questions because we have no strangers here. This is your third trip on the program, so we're getting right to work. Justice, co-host, she was not here before, but she is here now. She can explain anything she wants to tell you about herself. She is non-white, a victim of racism, white supremacy, and she has some questions for you. I want to make sure that I request, and I want to be assertive about this and making sure that the vocabulary level, we all make an effort to use lower vocabulary levels so we can be understood. And it would be most helpful if you could slow down. I'm going to make an effort to be assertive and prompting about slowing down so people can hear you, because sometimes you do talk a little fast.
I do.
Justice? Yeah. Rock and roll, Justice.
I'm not hearing anything. I don't know.
Are you a racist?
I didn't hear the part before that. Was that silence for a while before the question? I didn't hear that.
I just said, are you a racist?
Oh, okay. I thought there was something before that because there was about 20 seconds of silence. Well, as I've said before on Gus's program, I have, as a white person growing up in this culture, internalized certain elements of racist and white supremacist thinking, no question about it. I've talked about that, written about that. I distinguish that.
Excuse me, I just want yes or no.
Well, see, but that's not the way human psychology works. The way I've answered the question before, and I will answer it again, whether one likes the answer or not, is that I have internalized aspects of racist thinking, as I would suggest every white person in the system of white supremacy has done. Now, that is different, however, from saying that I believe in, support, and advocate the system of racism and white supremacy, which I actually reject and attempt to fight against. But I would be dishonest if I did not acknowledge that I, like every other white person, have internalized certain aspects of racist thinking. I've always said that, but I do not believe that is the same as saying, as I think some believe it is the same as saying, that I therefore support actively and advocate for the system of racism, which is a system that I find deplorable, actually.
The words that you're using, I do not understand.
Why is that?
And all I need is just a yes or no. Are you a racist? Yes or no?
See, but that's not how human psychology works. It is not a yes or no question.
What's humans, whatever you call it?
Psychology? Psychology is the way that the brain functions. It's the study of the brain. And
I don't want the brain functions or anything like that. All I want is just a yes or a no.
Right, but it's not a yes or no question. And so you're going to be frustrated if you ask me that question. I've answered the question in very basic English, and I'm quite certain that you do understand. But I know that we like to play games on the show sometimes. And so I'm going to suggest that this is a very simple answer. I said I have internalized aspects of racist thinking. Now, if you want to take that as a yes to your question, feel free to do it. But I've also said that I have also internalized anti-racist thoughts, anti-racist norms, anti-white supremacist thinking, because even though I was exposed to racist ideas, and those have affected me like they've affected everyone, I was also taught to be an anti-racist, and so I've internalized that as well. So the best way that I can answer your question is to say that I have both internalized racist ideas and anti-racist ideas. Whether that makes me a racist in your estimation, that's for you to decide. I'm simply saying it's part of who I am. It is not all of who I am.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words. Can you please?
Excuse me, what did you say? These are not graduate level school words that I'm using. These are about 9th grade words. So it's not as if I'm using words that you cannot comprehend.
I'm only 10.
You want a yes or no answer, but there is not a yes or no answer to your question. Your question is not one that can be answered with a yes or a no. I understand, or I assume, that you have been trained to believe that everything is that simple. It is not that simple. Whether one is 10, whether one is 30, it is not that simple a question, and therefore the answer is not that simple. Can I give you an example of what I mean? And I think this will make it easy.
No.
Well, okay. I've been asked to be a guest on the program, and I think sort of basic courtesy would allow me to do that. But maybe that's not something that you believe in. I will tell you this. When I was 10 or 20 or 30, I would use this.
I don't want if you're 10 or 30 or whatever you're trying to talk about. I just need, are you a racist?
And I gave you an answer. It's an answer you don't like. And that's, I can't tell you anything more. I've given you an answer. I think you're well smart enough to figure out what it is I've said. I said I have internalized racist thoughts and that I am opposed to the system of racism, which is to say that I have both racist aspects of my personality and anti-racist aspects. That is a simple answer. It is not a convoluted or complicated answer. It's not the answer that you prefer. It's not the answer that Gus prefers. It's not the answer that CodeSpeak prefers, but it is the only intellectually honest answer that I can offer you. And it's the only one you're going to get this evening.
So then that means you are a racist, right?
It means exactly what I said. It means exactly what I said, nothing more and nothing less. And I think that if you want to assume that that means that it's a yes, then you're free to assume that. What I'm saying is very simply what I said. It's not complicated.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's actually not. It's actually
to me
not.
It is.
It's only complicated.
I'm only 10 years old, and you're very confusing.
Okay, well, I'm very sorry that you're confused. I've given you the only answer that I know how to give you. So, that's the best I can offer you. It's an honest answer. It is an answer that reflects what I honestly believe to be true about myself. You asked me a question about me. I gave you an answer about me. You don't like the answer because the code that you have been trained in says that
I didn't even say that I even liked the answer or disliked the answer.
Well, you keep asking the question over, so I assume you're unsatisfied by the answer. That's what it means when you ask a question.
Because I don't understand it.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I've given you the answer. It's the only one I know to give you. It's the best that I can do. So if you have another question, I'll try to answer that one.
Who do you know that practices racism, white supremacy better than you?
Who do I know that practices it that is in me? I don't get the last part. I understand the first part. I'm not sure I understand the second part.
Who do you know that practices racism, white supremacy better than you?
Oh, better than me?
Yes.
Is that better? Okay, I didn't hear the word better. I'm sorry. Well, first of all, I try very hard not to practice racism, white supremacy. I try in my work to challenge racism, white supremacy. Now, whether I'm good at that or effective at that, that's for other people to judge. But I will tell you that I know plenty of people, of course, just by virtue of living in this country, who practice racism and white supremacy very actively. You will meet those. I've met people in school settings, in workplaces, working for different organizations, and just folks who I meet every day who absolutely practice and try to refine and perfect the system of racism and white supremacy, and who treat non-white peoples in racist ways. There are literally hundreds of people, probably thousands of people who I've met who do that. I also have met people and know people who practice challenging white supremacy and racism. Most of them are people of color or non-white peoples, but some, indeed quite a few, are classified as white in the society. So I'm not sure, we literally would be here all night if I started rattling off names and positions, but there are lots of people who practice racism and white supremacy who I've come in contact with throughout the course of my life.
Do you think you could tell me 3 or 4 people?
Oh, my goodness. Well, everybody from, I would say, probably the whole board of administrators.
Tell me the names.
Well, these are some of these people I've known for a long. I haven't seen in years, and they're not names that I automatically recall. But I'll give you an example. The board of administrators at my college. I went to college 20 years ago, and the entire board of administrators, well, virtually the entire board of administrators, the people who make the policy for that college, like most colleges, are white, and they actually were very open about saying that their purpose was to maintain that school. It's a very sort of elite, mostly white college in New Orleans, Louisiana, was to maintain that school the way that the founder of the school had envisioned it, and the founder of that school had seen it as a white place. Frankly, a white male place. So all of those individuals, the board, honestly, it's been 20 years. I don't remember their names. A few of them, Robert Bowe would be one, Boatner Riley, a couple of names that I recall. These were board members of my college. Other people would include, police that I have talked to and even trained and done workshops with, who have openly admitted their own racial biases, their own prejudices, their own racist beliefs about non-white peoples. I don't get all of their names when I'm working with them. I probably do at the time, but I don't write them down and remember them. People who've worked in corporations where I've done trainings or workshops who either admit or who after we talk for a while, it becomes rather obvious that they still continue to believe all kinds of racist things about people of color. So corporate people, law enforcement officers, teachers, administrators at my college. Literally, my argument, and I've made it on this show before, is that virtually every white person in the United States. Whether I can name them all or not, there are 200 million, but virtually every white person in the United States participates in the system of racism and